All right, good evening, everyone. We'd like to call this meeting of the West Dallas West Milwaukee School District to order, please. If we could please rise for the pledge. Mr. Keller, would you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to Hanson, but I left them in my briefcase, I guess.
All right, we'd like to call this meeting of the West Dallas West Milwaukee School District to order, please. If we could rise, Ms. Heather Justin, could you please do the pledge? Called you by your phone.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic.
Notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the open meeting laws of the state of Wisconsin. Do we have any changes or modifications to tonight's agenda?
I have no changes.
Okay, great. We would then go into public comments. I will call your name, and when you come up to the podium, please provide your name and address. And we do give 3 minutes for public comments, and knowing that we will not be debating or responding tonight, but that response will be given by the school board or by the superintendent before the next school board meeting. Matthew Peets? Peets, thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
I was a little quiet.
Oh, is this the volume on here, or?
It's better.
Yeah, it's
No,
better
that's
now.
better
Yeah.
now.
Oh, okay, well, I'm a big mouth anyway, so.
Might not even need the mic.
Do I need to spell it also?
No, you don't need to spell it, just name and address, please.
Oh, Matthew Peets, 2457 South 63rd Street.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm glad that you all are here. I'm here because I'm a crossing guard, and you're actually my client. I work for Wisconsin Personal Protective Services down the road here on Lincoln Avenue. I'm over at 63rd and Mitchell, block south of Horace Mann. I had it last year. The reason I'm here tonight is it's turning into a bad corner, driver-wise. And I'll just highlight a few things that are going on over there that are putting myself and my kids at risk. I wasn't expecting to have to come here and let you all know this, but 3 weeks ago, in the afternoon time slot, there's 7 vehicles that ran through the east-west stop sign. That was extreme. That started the whole process, and I called Alderman Vitale. He's as concerned about that corner as I am, and I've contacted the police department. They're around every once in a while. They can't do much, which I understand. I'm unable to get plate numbers, and when I do, I call them in. Apparently, that's the end of it. Next time was a young guy on his cell phone. I don't even know if he even knew the stop sign was there. He went right through it. The next event was this car I kind of recognized. He was coming up behind a van that actually stopped there. He went around the van on the left side, made a left turn, and there was a car that's going to try to make a left turn. They had to stop in order not to hit him. And he went screaming down 63rd to Burnham. Last Friday, it almost happened. Of course, I mean, I tend to get a little dramatic. There was almost a head-on at that corner Friday afternoon, and it almost escalated. I was sitting there watching it, and one of the cars took off. I mean, they stopped and they're jabbing each other. When the first car took off, the other car, the driver got out and they were going to chase after the other car. It's like, go ahead. I mean, I enjoy the show. But, they took off, and I called, the police department to have, squads around there. And so I'm beginning to wonder, I mean, am I going to see worse? every morning and every afternoon I'm there, I have to be very careful and watch these cars to make sure they stop. And I'm just grateful. I thank God that I don't have, I have the smarts not to get hit, and I have the smarts not to let my kids get hit. I mean, I have a handicapped wife I go home to. So that's why I make sure that I stay safe. Now, either the school board or the police department, I mean, I was told by Alderman Vitale that the police department was going to put a mobile stop sign out there. That was a week ago. It ain't out there yet. It may not come. Okay, fine. If I have to go solo the rest of the school year until I find a better job, I will. You know, I'm out there to do my job. I will do it. I will do it. I will be there and make sure that I'm safe and the kids are safe. But I'd like a little help. Get video cameras up there. I was thinking about these flashing lights that there are other corners that I've worked with. I mean, they're okay. But with these drivers, I think most of them are thinking that I got to hurry and get through here before something crazy comes and rams me. The other problem over there is that the school buses and the parents that drop off their kids on 63rd Street up by the elementary school, sometimes it gets backed up, and it backs up to my corner. And some of these parents get very impatient. I hear horns beeping. I'm thinking, well, I'm just waiting for people to run into each other and get out of the car and start, smack down West Dallas style. I have to be comical because this is the only way I can deal with it. I'm lucky I don't have nightmares about that corner. So you got my contact information down. I mean, I contacted West Dallas reporter, which I think her name is Miss Ford. She called me back because I can only leave a message. She called me back, and I called her back. I told her what was going on. She hasn't contacted me back, so I guess okay. I guess it's not interesting. Maybe I should, get myself hurt over there. Maybe she'll do a story. Oh, crossing guard got hurt. I don't think so. I'd like to think that there's some intelligence going on that we can make that that we can make that corner safer. We, not just me, we. So I try to be a little humorous about this because I have to be humorous about this. I'm a calm guy usually, and until I get home, of course. But I need help. I need to know that the kids are going to be assured that they're going to have a safe crossing, and give those drivers a message that West Dallas is serious about them slowing down and stopping. Not just, I think you get the idea.
Yep.
So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
very
Thank
much.
you.
Okay, that is all we had listed for public comments this evening. We'll then go into the superintendent's report.
Great, thank you. We'll start with 7.1, report from West Dallas Central High School student representatives. So go ahead and introduce yourselves and share your report.
Hi, I'm Tori.
And I'm Manny.
We're seniors at West Dallas Central, and we're here to give you a little update about what's going on at our school. The Scholastics Art and Writing event is a rigorous and challenging competition. Senior Julia Jarose received honorable mention. She will receive her award on February 9th at the Milwaukee Art Museum. The owners of the organization felt that the arts were overlooked and began this contest 95 years ago. There are 16 art categories and 11 writing categories to compete with other kids from 7th to 12th grade. The work begins regionally and continues on to a national level if the art is awarded a gold key. Gold and silver key winners will have their work hung in the Milwaukee Art Museum for the month of February. This year, there were over 35,000 works of art, while only 9,000 received an award.
On Wednesday, Miss Fronsky held her twice annual art show in Central's library. Each student in her classes was required to have 3 pieces of work and an artist statement, as well as help with the setup and the teardown. The students brought a parent or adult with them to see the work, and the turnout was phenomenal. The art, as you can see, was also exceptional. Much of the art at this semester's show was three-dimensional. In addition to Ms. Fronsky's and Ms. Rowley's art students, Ms. Boyle-White's graphic design students also participated in the show, displaying their Photoshop skills. Congratulations, Ms. Fronsky, on another wonderful show.
Our West Dallas Central DECA chapter competed this past weekend at Kettle Moraine High School in the District 5 competition. 6 of our members stepped out of their comfort zones to compete against 17 of the top schools from the area. They all took a 100-question multiple-choice exam and took part in 2 role-play scenarios that were presented in front of the judges. Unfortunately, none of our members earned a medal this year, but they competed hard and gained invaluable experience in planning, organizing ideas, and public speaking. I could not be more proud of these students. Additionally, our school's DECA chapter increased our membership to 28 students this year. This was enough to gain 2 spots to the state competition in Lake Geneva this March. Wish the best of luck to our seniors Alexia Rodriguez and Jose Prado on their trip to state. Thanks to Mr. Lukomsky for his work in advising this group.
In Mexico, Dia de los Reyes is celebrated on January 6th to honor the 3 wise men. This holiday represents the day the 3 wise men gave gifts to Jesus Christ. The day closes the Christmas festivities and is the day the people of Mexico exchanged gifts. Today, students shared their experiences when celebrating this holiday to Spanish classes and or staff that stopped by. Students brought the traditional pastry called rosca and drink called ponche. Special thanks to Miss Acevedo and her Spanish Honor Society students who set up the display.
On Wednesday, Keontis Gallion signed his letter of intent to become a student athlete at Silver Lake College this fall. Keontis will be studying to become a special education teacher and will be running for the cross-country team. Keontis has put in a lot of work during his 2 years at Central, playing multiple sports, being an active member of the morning news team, and always trying his hardest in classes, and does everything with a kind smile on his face. He is a Bulldog we can all be proud of.
Mr. Lukomsky's first period career and employability skills class took part in mock interviews on Thursday. Business professionals from the greater Milwaukee area took time out of their day to help our students with their professional interview skills. 30 seniors received an experience similar to an interview that they can expect to have during their professional careers after high school and college. The students were provided extremely useful feedback to grow their interview skills. The students went through the entire job search process, from writing or updating their resumes and through the entire job and practicing common interview questions, to researching the company and job description they were applying for. Things culminated with the interview and follow-up. The helpful professionals from Badger Mutual, Clifton Larson Allen, and Deloitte & Touche were quite impressed with our students' knowledge, politeness, and their willingness to communicate.
This week, students are learning about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in AP Human Geography. After studying the physical, cultural, and economic geography of the area, they created proposals of ways the land could be divided or shared in a way that takes into consideration the needs of both sides, using writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading. That's all.
Any questions or comments for our students? All right, well, thank you guys for coming tonight.
Thank you.
We will go on to 7.2. Today it is a department showcase, not a school showcase, and we mix those in here and there. We thought this was an opportunity to introduce the board to a little bit more of the coaching model we use, and I think the board hears a lot about coaching positions, but maybe not so much the work that they're doing. So Deidre and the team is here to present some background information on student-centered coaching.
Good evening, everyone. So tonight we have Diane Lazaridis and Adam Hengel with us to talk about our kind of coaching model that we've been using, as Marty said. This is the first year we've really transitioned many positions into coaching positions. So what used to be a reading interventionist is now a reading specialist, and that person is doing some co-teaching and planning with groups of teachers as well as some coaching. Our GCT teachers are doing some co-planning and co-teaching and coaching in classrooms, as well as our deeper learning coaches and our innovation coaches. So the deeper learning coaches have always done a lot of coaching, but those other roles didn't historically do a lot of coaching. And it was really under Diane's push that we started looking at one model of coaching. Our coaches had studied coaching models for a really long time. And they knew a heck of a lot about different coaching models, but then we were spending a lot of time talking about coaching, and we weren't spending enough time actually doing any coaching. So we narrowed our focus and really spent some time going deep with understanding one model of coaching that's consistent across schools, it's consistent across the different coaches. And then Adam worked hard this year to apply for a grant, so we were actually able to bring in the person who wrote the student-centered coaching model, a representative from her office, to do some direct coaching with our coaches around making sure that we're sticking to the model with fidelity. And we've had about 38 people.
Oh, no, like, we have about 65.
Okay, so 65 people altogether that were able to participate in those sessions and learn directly from the trainer. That culminates tomorrow and the next day with actually some mock coaching sessions where others get to observe and give some feedback with the trainer right there. So with that, I'll pass it over to Adam and Diane.
Okay, so basically, we're just going to take a couple minutes to walk you through the why, the what, and kind of the how that we're implementing our student-centered coaching model. The first component is really, why are we doing coaching? And the bottom line is really, we're trying to help folks learn rather than teaching them. And, just think any sports analogy that you can come up with. If we don't take people and walk through practicing and perfecting things, and we just kind of model, it's not going to work. So that coaching component is really walking people through the how of learning something. So as Deidre just pointed out, we walked through many different coaching models throughout the years. And cognitive coaching, lots of different ones. I mean, one of the first ones we really worked on was relationship-driven coaching. And in this type of coaching, it's really where the coach is viewed as just a friendly source of support who provides resources when needed. Data really wasn't used, and it's really just a way of coaching that doesn't challenge or threaten anyone. We didn't find that that was really something that was driving, our students to learn more and move forward. So then we kind of dabbled with teacher-centered coaching. And in this coaching model, the coach is really viewed as a person who's there to hold teachers accountable. It really is based on taking curricular programs and meeting objectives. Summative assessments are used, and it's really focused on what the teacher is doing or isn't doing. These, again, seem to be, working, yet we weren't getting the biggest bang for our buck. So we started dabbling with looking into this student-centered coaching model. And with the student-centered coaching model, it truly is. I mean, it's focused on kids, and that's what we need to have, is everyone focused on that student learning. And in this model, the coach is viewed as a partner who's there to support teachers to move students towards mastery of standards. So as Deidre mentioned before, over the past couple of years, we've really been transitioning a lot of our teachers into co-planning to co-serve for students. And we were finding that some of our reading teachers, special ed teachers, GC teachers that are supporting, that planning component was kind of nebulous. They would come in and they weren't quite sure, they didn't have a good format to use. And it could turn into kind of coaching around fixing each other. We can't have that. These are peers. It's peer-to-peer. So with with the student-centered coaching, it's really about a partnership between the teachers, and it's all about that student learning. We also found that with student-centered coaching, it really helps closing our achievement gaps. And we all know that we do have some populations of students that we really need to figure out, here's where they are, what kind of steps do we need to take in order to have them meet that proficiency or that mastery level. Student-centered coaching helps create those goals and those targets so that we know those steps to take to close those achievement gaps. And it also builds teacher efficacy. And not only teacher to teacher, but this collective teacher efficacy where the teachers believe that they really have the ability to guide their students towards success. So we're all working towards a common goal. And, you know, there's a researcher named Hattie that, you know, he has stated that this teacher collective efficacy is really one of the greatest impacts on student successes. So these were some things that we really said, you know, were a driving force to get to that student-centered coaching. And now Adam's going to talk a little bit about what actually is student-centered coaching. What's the process?
Okay, so again, the idea that students are at the center. This graphic, you know, the student learning is in the center. Like Diane said, it's not about, in some of those other models of coaching, it's kind of about fixing. Coach goes in and said, oh, I saw you doing this strategy. I'd really like to see you do this strategy. Where as I'm kind of walking you through the process, and again, you know, we're sticking to our timeline. We've spent, as a collective group, started in last spring and gone all the way up until now studying this. So I just want to give you a brief overview. So first of all, what we do is we start with coaching cycles. So the coach and the teacher are usually typically in about a 4 to 6 week relationship. Some of the work that Diane Sweeney is coming up with for short, like mini cycles, of about 3 to 4 weeks, but we've been sticking to about a 4 to 6 week rotation. And like Diane was talking about, really the co-planning between the coach and the teacher is what's been most effective. And typically they're in a coaching session about 1 to 3 times a week where the coach is actually in the classroom. So the coach could be doing a modeling strategy where they're actually teaching the lesson and the teacher is kind of co-teaching with them, but the coach is actually taking the lead. And so that's been one of the most effective strategies I think that some of our people have been using over the last 6 months. Coaches can also, they can work in groups, they can work as pairs or as individuals. I think a lot of our coaches in that first coaching cycle, they were like, ooh, I want to take on like a whole grade level at one time, and I want to coach 4 people at one time. And they're kind of learning like, I think it's a little bit better to coach one-on-one. It's just easier that way, and they can get to know the relationship is a lot stronger when they're working with one person. So they're working on that, and then we're aligning it with a unit of instruction. So we've got a lot of goals going on for our coaching cycles. They're looking at the standards. So they pull out the guaranteed and viable curriculum. They're looking at the I can statements. What are you going to be covering in the next 4 weeks that I could be working on with you during our coaching cycle? And they pick a learning goal. We spent the afternoon of our last session with Karen, who's our trainer from, she's up from Alabama. She's staying at the Hampton Inn right now. I have to pick her up tomorrow morning. So also surprised that there's no snow. She's like, where's the snow? Okay. We spent a whole afternoon just working on learning goals. So we pulled out our I can statements, and the teachers all wrote goals because they want to focus to make sure that's not something that's too broad. You know, your goal isn't, I want to teach long division over the next 6 weeks. You're teaching like more specific things, but not so specific where you're like, we're working on 10 by 10 digit long division. And it's really led by the teacher. I think one of the biggest pieces in the realization as our coaches are getting through this is they're figuring out that they don't have to have all the answers to everything. They're really just a guide there, and they're asking those questions about and getting those people to come up with their own learning goals. I think that's where the teacher really grows, and that's also where the coach has realized, oh, I guess I don't need to know everything about instruction that could ever be known. They're there as a leader and really as a questioner where the teacher is coming up with those pieces. So like I said, the third step is we work on learning targets, and they're really taking that broader goal and unpacking it, those I can statements. They're looking at the assessments, making sure that, this has been great for our assessment alignment as well. So they're looking at those I can statements, and then looking at the assessment that they're gonna give at the end of maybe 2 or 3 weeks into the cycle, and saying, oh, does this assessment actually, tell me whether or not my kids can do what my learning target is. And they're, like I said, they're used throughout the coaching cycle. They're creating a criteria for student performance and student success. They're student-friendly. That's one of the biggest pieces as we write our I can statements. They're so students and parents can understand them. So it's not something overarching that has a bunch of kind of educational rhetoric that kids aren't able to understand. I can walk into a classroom at any time and say, hey, what's your learning target for today? Can you tell me that in another way? And students are able to say, oh yeah, that would look like this, or I know I'm successful when I do this. And some of as we've had a number of about 65 different people kind of engaging in coaching. Some people are coaching around academics, some people are coaching around behavior, some people are coaching around engagement, technology integration. So a number of different people are focusing on some of our different learning targets depending on their role. And then they're using student evidence. I think this is the biggest piece where it really takes away the onus on, versus me coming in and trying to fix you. It looks at what the students are actually doing, and then they do a sort where they figure out what can these students do versus what these students do versus what these students do, and then they're using those to pull small group instruction. And when that works, people are like, this is absolutely the best thing that I've done, to sit down and just take student work and analyze it and put it into 3 piles, and then I know tomorrow I'm pulling these kids because they all need this, I'm pulling these kids because they need this strategy, and I'm pulling these kids because they need this strategy. So like I said, they're using that second bullet point there. It might be student writing, but they can also be using anecdotal evidence or story evidence of conference notes. In the secondary, we see a lot of our coaches using exit and entrance tickets, where the teacher might be giving an exit ticket at the end of the day on that skill or that learning target for the day, and then they're sitting down after class and saying, ooh, yeah, I got a group of kids who really nailed it, and I got a group of kids who didn't get it, so I'm going to start off with a small group lesson tomorrow. Problem-solving tasks, those higher order cognitive thinking tasks that we've been creating throughout the district, throughout all of our subject areas, and then readers and writers notebooks as well. Another strategy is that co-teaching that I had talked about, and really measuring that impact of coaching on student and teacher learning. Like Diane was saying, we're using that really to close some gaps and see some really nice growth in schools that have those coaching cycles really going on regularly, and it's making a really large impact, which is great. There's a tool that Diane is going to show you at the very end. So we have this results-based coaching tool that is from one of Diane Sweeney's books, and then all of our coaches keep coaching logs, and they're working on continuous formative assessment. That all kind of helps us measure our impact. And then, as we always talk about, when coaches and teachers go into a relationship, it's kind of like that attorney-client privilege, where that's a relationship that they're talking about, but then the coach also partners with the principal and might say, hey, I've worked with a number of people on XYZ, and this is what we've been working on. You might want to go in and see that for yourself to see how much we've grown in that area. But again, it's that partnership. It's not the coach saying, hey, this teacher, I worked on this, you go in and evaluate it and make sure they're still doing it. It's a partnership where it's kind of like that ebb and flow.
So, we just wanted to go over briefly our journey with the student-centered coaching. So, like we said before, we've tried out different coaching models. We found that they weren't really driving student learning, so we settled on trying out our student-centered coaching. And it started out probably about February. We brought all of the deeper learning coaches in at that time, and they were, at that point, academic deans. And we found that a life in the day of an academic dean, there were a lot of things playing into their role that had nothing to do with coaching. And we really needed to get them back to that coaching component. So we brought them in, we walked through basically step by step how to do student-centered coaching, and we would take little snippets and they would go back and practice in their buildings, so that by the end of the school year last year, they had gone through a complete cycle with the student-centered coaching model. Then in the summer, as we transitioned, so we took, academic deans became deeper learning coaches. Our reading teachers, we kind of reformatted into reading coaches / specialists. We did the tech integrators into innovation coaches. We needed to let them know what that meant. I mean, what was their job? What was their role in the district now that we made that transition? So we did a lot of book studies. There are 3 different books that we looked at from Diane Sweeney on student-centered coaching. This was the what. Obviously, we didn't have students involved at this point, but they were just given the information as to, okay, what is my job going to look like, and how can I move forward? We also at that time did some leadership training. So we brought in the principals and the assistant principals and talked through how can you as leaders support these coaches in their new roles, and really, have some accountability measures in place for those coaches as well. And then, like Adam and Deidre referred to, this year we had the opportunity of bringing in the Diane Sweeney consulting group, and we have a trainer. She started in September. She had 2 days of training where she really just kind of kicked it off, and how do you start the year with coaching. She came back in November for 2 days, and then that was kind of the nitty-gritty of how do we walk through the process and practice it. And then starting tomorrow and Wednesday, we have some observation labs set up where we had 4 folks, Kristen Swoboda from Mitchell, Jane Carr from Hoover, Denise Odia from Frank Lloyd Wright, and Becky Grease from Madison have volunteered to allow us to come in and observe some co-planning and co-teaching, and then the consultant is going to be leading us through some discussions revolving around those observations. And then we'll continue those observations, and coaching labs throughout the rest of the year, trying to perfect and hone our skills. So we're very excited to, have actually the teachers be very excited about the process that's in place, that good solid training is in place, and that we really are focused around students. Adam did refer to, we do have 2 things we have been putting in draft form where we do have different roles differentiated. So we've got, what are our school leaders' roles within this? What are our deeper learning coaches' roles within this? And then also our teacher coaches, and those would be our reading specialists, innovation coaches, et cetera. We even have SEL teachers, ESL teachers, GCT teachers, special ed teachers involved in some of this training as well. So it's very exciting to see those teacher roles.
Diane put this together for us, and our consultant actually took it back and showed it to Diane Sweeney. So that was pretty cool. She's like, because we do have those different roles of a teacher coach versus our deeper learning coaches, and what that role of the leadership is.
Right. And then this just is, the actual tool that the teachers use to keep themselves on track as they're doing their partnership coaching. That walks through the goals, the targets, instructional components, how they pre-assess and post-assess, and how they sort student data, and then how they come back together and find out, well, how did our coaching cycle end, and how do we move forward?
And the goal would be that every single teacher in a 3-year cycle in every building gets the opportunity for a coaching cycle. So it's not particular teachers are chosen for coaching cycles. We started with volunteers, because that's obviously easiest. And then those people were saying, hey, this was actually really beneficial to me, and it wasn't judgment or evaluation. And so, then the next round, we had more people sign up than we had coaches who could coach. And so the idea there would be that within that 3-year cycle, every building should have enough support in the building to be able to have every teacher have the opportunity over the course of 3 years, and then you start the cycle over again so that everybody gets that opportunity. Because it is quite an investment of time for the coach and the person. And so in some of our larger schools, we're starting to work on the assistant principals, being trained in the coaching model, because as long as they don't evaluate that teacher, they can coach them. So if an assistant principal evaluates the science department, they can coach in the social studies department. You just can't be the coach and the evaluator.
And just as kind of a clarification too, our reading specialists, our innovation coaches, SEL teachers that are using this coaching model, that is only a component of their day. They are also, they do have teaching duties as well. So they will be pulling out some small groups and doing our, RTI interventions, or again, pushing into the classroom and doing lots of co-teaching. But it's a balance between that co-planning, co-teaching, and coaching as well.
Any questions for us? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll go on to, 7.3, the legislative update. Just a couple things that I'll highlight and what's been shared with the board. So we have a new state superintendent that's been named. Governor Tony Evers named Carolyn Stanford Taylor as the next state superintendent of schools. Stanford Taylor currently serves as Evers' assistant superintendent at the Department of Public Instruction. She currently oversees the special education team, student services, prevention, and wellness team within the department. And she will become Wisconsin's first African-American leader of the Department of Public Instruction. So congratulations to her. And then also, we're watching additional information that's starting to come up now around the Blue Ribbon Commission on School Funding. So this was a project that started a while back. There have been many kind of meetings, hearings, visits across the state. And so their first recommendations are out, and they're starting to share those and get feedback on those. There are things that I think would benefit West Allis, West Milwaukee, and things that we're a little concerned about. But at this point, it's a set of recommendations, and I think, as the board knows, and many folks in the public, school financing or funding and financing is incredibly complicated, and you get into, anytime there's a change, the winners and losers kind of dynamic of what people start to focus on. What I'm really trying to focus on is what's the best for kids, right, in the bigger picture. So we're going to watch that. There's also an opportunity for board members, if you want to learn more, down at the State Education Convention on Friday the 25th. That's at 9:15 in the morning. Then we'll move on to 7.4, district recognitions. So State of Wisconsin proclamation. This is interesting, giving our public comment this evening. The State of Wisconsin proclamation reads that it is proclaimed that January 14, 2019 through January 18, 2019 is Adult School Crossing Guard Recognition Week in the state of Wisconsin. Adult school crossing guards provided invaluable service in helping ensure safe passage of our youngest, most vulnerable pedestrians, and we're thankful for their service. And so, Mr. Peets, I want to thank him for what he does every day, and we'll look into that and probably have a conversation at their next city schools meeting. At Franklin Elementary School, Melissa Girax, fourth grade students won the Achieve 3000 Read to Succeed contest. She was awarded a gift card used for a classroom celebration. Kathy Sapleski's, taking a stab at it, class created a Native American museum in their classroom. Visitors from other schools toured the museum to see the projects her students completed. And Christy Kleinowski received a donation from Chick-fil-A, awarding her and her students with a large chocolate chip cookie worth over $400, and milk for an incentive as Franklin students read 250,000 minutes. At Pershing Elementary School, the entire Pershing student body was adopted by DECA students from Oconomowoc High School during the holiday season. Members of the student organization delivered gifts, played games, sang carols, and visited with Pershing students on December 19, 2018. All Pershing students received items such as books, toys, socks, hats, gloves, snow pants, snow boots, coats. Students were extremely gracious and thankful to be part of the experience. The story was featured in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel Southwest Now section on December 26, 2018. Walker Elementary School, Team Diversity, along with Student Council and Kids Matter, collected over 100 pairs of new pajamas and donated them with new books to area homeless shelters. And Shared Journeys Charter School, over 40 current and former Shared Journeys families received holiday gifts from the generous donations of Old National Bank, Aurora, Washington, and Apostle Presbyterian Church, and other community donors, which were given out at their annual Cookies with Santa Saturday morning gathering. Shared Journeys was also selected as the recipient of a holiday meal prepared and served by Capri de Novo on 8340 West Beloit Road in West Allis. So we want to thank them. And students designed at Shared Journey, students designed breast cancer awareness t-shirts to support academic tutor Jesse Hogan, who has just completed 16 weeks of chemotherapy. And the Recreation and Community Services Department, over 500 high school students and district personnel volunteered to make the 2018 annual Children's Holiday Target Shopping Experience a huge success. Over 700 students and their families attended this event. Additionally, Target West Allis management commented on the professionalism and helpful nature of the student volunteers. Special thanks to Mr. Greg Zeman and the Zeman Family Foundation for providing $60,000 to fund the 2018 annual Children's Holiday Target Shopping Experience. So again, you know, we appreciate him so much and that opportunity for students.
Question?
Mhm.
Don't you think possibly the Aurora is Aurora West Allis?
Yes, I'm
Oh,
sure it's
yes,
abbreviated.
sorry, I didn't.
Kind of
Right.
wonder why Washington would send their stuff way over here.
I was wondering that too. Good
And
catch.
tie in with
Right.
Shared Journeys.
Right, Aurora West Allis. Thank you. No, good catch. Thank you. And then 7.5, just some quick updates and information items. So we had public comments at the December 17th, 2018 meeting. Those comments were related directly to a specific student record, so I can't talk publicly about them. Although parents are welcome to share whatever they want in public, I'm not allowed to respond in public. But we did review it and reviewed additional documents. I shared some of the background through internal communication with the board, and we're responding in writing on those parents, and we'll share even the kind of background documents redacted with from other student names, but we're following up with that one in writing. Just a personal note to thank the board for the gifts before we went on break, and my little fun piece of family tradition is shared with you this evening, but I just wanted to publicly thank you, and it's always nice to share gifts at that time of year. Next week is the Wisconsin State Education Convention. So Stephanie and I are presenting as part of a panel on our continuous improvement work, and that will be on the 23rd at 8 a.m. in room 102A and B. So if you're interested in learning more about that, the Wisconsin districts, Racine, for example, is one of them. They're just at the beginning stages of their work with Studer. So I think that'll be kind of interesting. High school exams are this week, so if we got any high school students listening, you shouldn't be, because you should be studying. But we encourage high school students to work hard. These are important moments as you get ready for your future. And then last, it should be no surprise that we're into the budget planning season for next year. And so some of that even begins in a workshop today where we are in projecting some of our open enrollment and Chapter 220 seats. And that rolls into enrollment projections, staffing projections, and then we keep kind of building from there. There are some unknowns this year at this point, because we have, we're in the beginning of the two-year budget, and with the change in leadership and the governorship, as well as divided kind of government politically, we're anticipating that there may be more unknowns than usual in budget planning. So it's a little bit difficult to project right now. Given that, Tony Evers came from a lifetime of education, we're certainly hopeful there's more money that gets proposed for education and then is supported. But we're going to be planning a little bit conservatively, so we're not surprised going the wrong direction later on. But just so the board hears that we're kind of in that space again, getting ready for next year. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go on to item 8, the board president's report. We'll start with the calendar. Tonight, Monday, January 14th, regular Board of Education meeting. Immediately following, we have 2 workshops, financial stability and efficiency regarding open enrollment in Chapter 220 seats, and then college and career readiness, profile of a graduate concept. Immediately following that, we will have a closed session meeting. On Monday, January 21st at 6 p.m., we have a college and career readiness workshop on student supports. On Monday, January 28th at 6 p.m., we have a regular Board of Education meeting. Following that, financial stability and efficiency workshop on the 2017-2018 audit report. Then on Monday, February 11th at 6 p.m., a regular Board of Education meeting. And then a recreation and community services workshop, which is a review of the construction plans for the new recreation center. Do any board members have any community updates or any events? Jeff?
I'd just like to give a shout out of thanks to Wilson Elementary. They had me over the last Friday in December. I was there from 9 until 3 reading Christmas stories to all the classes.
That's awesome.
And it's amazing, after you leave teaching and you don't talk all day, I couldn't hardly talk on Saturday off my reading, but I thank them for the invite.
Absolutely. Did you wear a Santa hat?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, good.
And I dyed my beard white, just for the.
Good job.
That's why it's so-
Any other events? or updates? All right. Thank you, everyone. All right, we will go on to item 9, the consent agenda. Item 9.1, the approval of the minutes from the December 17th, 2018 regular Board of Education meeting. Item 9.2, the employment summary. And item 9.3, the supplementary contract. Does anyone need anything separated? If not, we would be looking for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved, approved, and seconded. Any additional comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We'll then go on to item 10, our action items for this evening. Item 10.1, the co-op renewals for tennis and gymnastics.
So these are items that come before the board every couple of years. So this is for the 2019-2020 and 2020-2021 school years to continue the current co-ops for tennis and gymnastics. There's no other changes, and just to remind the board and folks that may be watching, because the high schools are in separate conferences, it's the high school, the co-op team belongs to the conference that is hosting the co-op. Right? So that's how you sort that out, just so that everybody remembers that little piece of this. But right, again, this was, the board saw this 2 years ago, and we're hoping that you approve it again, so we keep these opportunities in front of kids.
Just a question, for gymnastics, it actually only has for 1 year, so we'd be doing that annually now, or was that just a mistake? If you look at the actual contract,
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it
basically.
is. They've just requested 1 year at this point.
Okay.
So then it'll come back again.
Okay.
If you read your rule, it says a co-op is due annually for gymnastics. It's one for
Okay.
the sports.
Oh,
Thank you.
Move to approve. Second.
All right, it's been moved, approved, and seconded. Any additional comments or questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, those continue. All right, item 11, board member suggestions for future agenda items. Okay, we will take a quick 5-minute break while we break down cameras, and then we will come back for our first workshop on financial stability and efficiency for open enrollment in Chapter 220. We're at recess.